Ever wondered about the darker side of Tinseltown? Today, we're diving deep into the world of the 20 most manipulative actors in Hollywood history. Buckle up, because this is going to be one wild ride.
Take your stole off and go to the powder room.
Powder room?
Just visit a while.
Number 20, Paul Reubens. Now let's dive into the scandal that shattered Pee Wee Herman's family-friendly image. Famous for his Pee Wee Herman routine, Paul Reubens faced a significant blow in 1991. Famous for his indescribably irritating Pee Wee Herman routine, Reubens' family-friendly image took a hit back in 1991 when he was caught at the local porno theater taking in a triple bill of X-rated movies. Not so fussed about that missing bicycle now, eh? The image of Pee Wee was broken on July 26, 1991. On his summer vacation, Reubens was visiting his parents in Sarasota and sought escape from boredom by catching a showing of the X-rated film Nurse Nancy. He fell victim to a police sting operation and was arrested for sex charges when detectives allegedly saw him playing with his private parts. He was released on bail of $219, and nobody realized what had happened until somebody recognized him beneath his long hair and goatee. The media went berserk. Kids show star arrested for indecent exposure. Because of his behavior, CBS dropped the Playhouse and related merchandise was released from its shelves. He agreed to pay a $50 fine plus $85 in court costs in Sarasota County, and he produced a 30-second public service message for the Partnership for Drug-Free America commercial. As part of the deal, the county sealed all legal papers relating to the actor's arrest and didn't leave Reubens with a criminal record. Number 19, Elizabeth Taylor. One of Hollywood's most notorious seductresses, Elizabeth Taylor was also known for her unique beauty and dramatic talents. Her most scandalous moment came when she hooked up with singer Eddie Fisher, who was then married to her best friend, Debbie Reynolds. Taylor and Fisher later wed, but ultimately divorced. Years later, Taylor apologized to Reynolds, and the two reconciled and became friends again. She was a force of nature. Even in childhood, she was quick to assert her independence and live life on her terms. The actress told Rolling Stone that she had always been the type to defy authority. "My nanny, for instance, was horrible," she said. "Her name was Frida Edith Gill. I think she was probably very sweet, and I was rude in my rebellion. But I had my own identity, and I probably was the biggest manipulator of all time. I got my own way so cunningly. Yeah, I was probably the biggest manipulator ever born." Number 18, Robert Mitchum. It is well known that Mitchum was the first Hollywood star to be publicly busted in public for marijuana possession when he was just 14 years old. He had been involved in numerous run-ins with the law all of his life, having escaped from a chain gang when he was only 14 years old. A lifetime of booze-fueled debauchery would follow, much of which only consolidated his persona as a hard-bitten man's man. In the 1950s, Robert Mitchum was the Hollywood heartthrob, and women across the country swooned over his rugged good looks and charming indifference. Yet beneath his roguish exterior was a troubled man prone to cruel betrayals, salacious scandals, and infamous acts. Let me just say, you aren't ready for this close-up. Mitchum was quite popular with the ladies because of his rugged good looks and patented demeanor of ennui. He must have had a monk's self-control, then, to remain faithful to his wife. Right? Wrong and wrong. Mitchum carried on many affairs during his marriage to Dorothy Spence, but there was always one thing she could hold over his head. Number 17, Vivien Leigh. She is most remembered for being the actress who brought to life both Scarlett O'Hara and Blanche DuBois in her films, but she was also known for her beauty and her intensity. But success and her notoriously volatile marriage to Sir Laurence Olivier didn't come easily, or ethically. According to one of the many documentaries made about her, Leigh went to see Laurence Olivier in a play and declared, "That's the man I'm going to marry." And a friend of hers who was with her had to point out, "Well, actually, you're already married." But this was all part of this ruthless ambition. People were to be cast by the wayside in those early days until she achieved what she really wanted. Olivier, too, was already married, but that didn't stop Leigh from following him and his wife to where they were vacationing in Capri. Lee and Olivier hooked up despite the fact that his spouse, actress Jill Esmond, was pregnant. The less than virtuous Olivier gave her the boot and married Lee soon after. Number 16. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was a beloved comedic figure of the silver screen, but his love life was scandalous even in his time. Chaplin was married 4 times throughout his life, first at the age of 29 and the last time at 53, but the age of his brides all stayed relatively the same. Number 16. Charlie Chaplin. Charlie Chaplin was a beloved comedic figure of the silver screen, but his love life was scandalous even in his time. Chaplin was married 4 times throughout his life, first at the age of 29 and the last time at 53, but the age of his brides all stayed relatively the same. His first marriage, again at age 29, was to 16-year-old Mildred Harris, but the couple divorced 2 years later. Then, at 35, he married 16-year-old Lita Gray. The pair even wed in Mexico to avoid California's statutory rape laws. Gray claimed she was forced to marry Chaplin after becoming pregnant with his child. The marriage would last for 3 years before a very public divorce occurred. In 1932, Chaplin began a relationship with 22-year-old Paulette Goddard, though she told him she was 17 at the time. They later married when she was 26 and he was 47, and stayed together for 6 years. In his 50s, Chaplin found his 4th and final wife, 18-year-old Una O'Neill, daughter of playwright Eugene O'Neill. This would prove to be the one that stuck. Charlie Chaplin was loved for his slapstick comedy, and little do people know how he made the lives of his teenage wives a live comedy. He treated them with relentless cruelty. Number 15. Jane Mansfield. It is probably fair to say that Jane Mansfield is more associated with racy and fabulous good times than any other actress in the history of Hollywood, apart from Mae West. Who can forget that shot of Sophia Loren side-eyeing Mansfield's prominent cleavage? The blonde bombshell had countless lovers and erotic romps, and was even rumored to have been a mistress of JFK. But her most notorious association was with Anton LaVey, founder of the Church of Satan. According to sources, Mansfield was not above tormenting the obsessed Satanist. Mansfield, who made no secret of her many affairs, denied knowing LaVey intimately. According to his publicist, Mansfield would ridicule her satanic suitor by calling from her Los Angeles home and seductively teasing him while her friends listened in on the conversation. LaVey's public claims that he had an affair with Mansfield began only after Mansfield's death in an automobile accident, which he also claimed was the result of a curse he had placed on her lover, Sam Brody. Number 14. Errol Flynn. In 1943, Errol Flynn, one of the biggest Hollywood stars of the late 1930s and early 40s, best known for his roles in swashbuckling pictures like Robin Hood and Captain Blood, stood trial for statutory rape. Flynn, once quoted as saying, "I like my whiskey old and my women young," was accused of sleeping with 2 17-year-old girls. He denied the charges, and his lawyers worked hard to turn the jury against the accusers. After he was found not guilty, one accuser was quoted as saying, "The jury just sat and looked adoringly at him as if he was their son or something." Flynn's appetite for younger women did not wane even after the scandal. At the courthouse during the trial, he met a 19-year-old he married. At the time of his passing, at age 50, Flynn was in a relationship with a woman he met when she was 15. Throughout his screen career, he was the rebellious freedom fighter who fought injustice and won the hearts of damsels. His off-screen passions, drinking, fighting, boating, and sex, made his film escapades seem pale. His love life brought him considerable fame, 3 statutory rape trials, and a lasting memorial in the expression, "in like Flynn." Number 13. Clara Bow. One of the first it girls of silent cinema, Clara Bow was one of the first and most luridly famous stars of the silent era. As this piece in The Hairpin puts it, when she retired in 1931 amid a tangle of scandals, she was all of 28 years old. Yet, most of the scandals that developed around her name and persona came from fallouts associated with old-fashioned romanticism, which Bow believed in as much as anybody. As the article puts it, like many female stars of the time, Bo treated the boyfriends that she most likely slept with as engagements. This led to a series of quickly formed and broken engagements to the likes of Gary Cooper, the director Victor Fleming, and Latin lover Gilbert Roland. When she had a case of nerves in the late 20s, she was treated by a Hollywood doctor. She developed a crush on her doctor. When the doctor's wife sued for divorce, she named Bo as the cause for alienation of affection. No good. It's not good, but perhaps it's unjust. There were other scandals that rocked Bo too, most notoriously the accusation that she'd slept with the entire USC football team. Bo was also screwed over by her secretary, who stole her personal records and then attempted to blackmail the actress in court by alleging all manner of constant drunkenness and hookups. Number 12. Clark Gable. Clark Gable was known as his day as the King of Hollywood, a title he'd worked hard to earn. He was also known as something of a ladies' man, a title he'd had to do very little to earn, and he happily went after anyone he shared the screen with, not to mention every pretty new starlet who rolled into town. He acted in such sexism and despicable manner throughout his career, but he was never caught and he was never held accountable for his evil behavior. And the image of his company remains untarnished until today, while the truth surrounding his wrongdoings remains a matter of speculation. The most significant of these stories came from BuzzFeed News in 2015, which suggested Clark Gable raped co-star Loretta Young in 1935. As the extensive investigation unveils, it is alleged that Young became pregnant at the age of 23 with Gable's child, whilst the actor was married to another woman. Despite his reputation, Gable was allegedly involved with men too. In David Brent's book Clark Gable, Tormented Star, the writer alleges Gable was involved with men, or at least traded sexual favors for career advancement and cash in his early days. Number 11. Louise Brooks. Louise Brooks had an extraordinarily brief but impactful film career. She hated Hollywood, seeking instead to build a haven out of sex, books, and gin. Brooks did, however, like to have a good time. She left her first husband, director Eddie Sutherland, after she fell in love with George Preston Marshall, owner of the Washington Redskins. She then left Marshall to marry someone else, whom she then left after less than 6 months. Brooks also had many lovers, including, for a night, Greta Garbo, and frequently posed nude. Number 10. Spade Cooley. Spade Cooley was the self-proclaimed king of Western swing. He had a television show, movie contracts, and hit records. In 1961, Cooley murdered his wife, Ella May, after beating her for hours in front of their daughter. As his fame grew, Cooley became increasingly paranoid. He was naturally impulsive and quick to lose his head, and his temper was exasperated by the stress of contractual obligations and his habit of hemorrhaging most of his vast wealth on bad investments. One fateful day, convinced his wife was having an affair, Cooley snapped, beating her for hours until she lost consciousness and eventually died. This murder took place in front of the couple's daughter, Melody, who testified against her father during a sensational trial that ended in a conviction for the murder on August 19, 1961. Cooley was sentenced to life in prison on August 22, 1961, but in another strange twist, the state of California granted him parole after he served 8 years. Cooley, who had been a model prisoner, was scheduled for parole on February 22, 1970, but was granted a temporary furlough to perform a charity concert on November 23, 1969. Number 9. Lupe Velez. Lupe Velez, known as the Mexican Spitfire, has mostly become known for the bizarre urban legends surrounding her death. She's rumored to have expired with her head in the toilet after having committed suicide in response to her lover abandoning her and their unborn child. But in fact, she was discovered in her bed by her secretary. Velez dated actor Gary Cooper for many years and called him the love of her life. But she was jealous of him and accused him of having an affair with actor Anderson Lawler, among other people. According to some stories, she supposedly unzipped Cooper's pants at social gatherings to sniff at his crotch, claiming that she smelled Lawler's cologne. Known for her unbridled exhibitism, Velez was rumored to have had hundreds of lovers and to have routinely participated in bawdy acts like lifting her dress above her head to reveal her habitual refusal to wear underwear. However, most of these reports were probably exaggerated. Velez was said to have deliberately encouraged gossip. Number 8. Charlie Sheen. Narrowly missing out on the top spot is the warlock of winning himself, Charlie Sheen. Whether lashing out at pesky studio execs, those who are forced to lay down with their ugly wives and their ugly children and just look at their loser lives, snuggling up to his duo of porn star girlfriends, or hoovering up heart-bothering lines of cocaine, Sheen is on a one-man mission to total meltdown. But remember, he's not bipolar, he's bi-winning. His divorce from Denise Richards amid claims of alcohol abuse and threatening behavior was followed by a similarly acrimonious split from Brooke Mueller, with People magazine reporting the actress had taken out a restraining order against the star. Way to go, Chaz. Number 7. Diana Dors. With her ostentatious mansion, kitschy decadence, and debauched parties, British cult actress Diana Dors was the definition of notorious. Dors was married 3 times, had numerous lovers, and was rather quaintly called a wayward hussy by the Archbishop of Canterbury. She was famous not just for starring in low-budget films, but for filming people having sex in her house. According to sources, to whoops and laughter, Dors guests watched grainy footage transmitted via video link of an unsuspecting couple who had chosen to cavort in one of the dimly lit upstairs bedrooms. It's fair to say that pretty much anything was acceptable during the infamous sex parties staged at Orchard Manor in Sunningdale, Berkshire. Diana Dors, born Diana Mary Fluck, 23 October 1931 through 4 May of 1984, was an English film actress and singer. She first came to public notice as a blonde bombshell in the style of American Marilyn Monroe, as promoted by her first husband, Dennis Hamilton, mostly via sex film comedies and risque modeling. Number 6. Oliver Reed. An incorrigible booze hound whose famous exploits involved vomiting on Steve McQueen, scrapping with director Ken Russell, and landing himself with 36 stitches in his face after a barroom brawl in the West End. That last escapade ended with Reed calling himself a cab to the hospital, only to become embroiled in a row with the cabbie after getting blood on his seats. Oh, Ollie. A versatile performer who made his living playing ruthless villains, actor Oliver Reed also developed a reputation as one of the bad boys of British cinema. In the 1960s and 1970s, he, along with pals Richard Burton, Richard Harris, and Peter O'Toole, notoriously raised hell while drinking themselves into oblivion, leaving behind a long line of battered hotel rooms and broken bones, courtesy of numerous bar fights. Number 5. Barbara Lamar. Silent movie star Barbara Lamar made just 27 films over the course of her short career. She isn't as well known as her contemporaries, but her story is just as compelling. Born Reatha Dale Watson in Yakima, Washington, she came to Hollywood riveted by the desire to be a great tragedienne and wield a dagger. According to LA Weekly, Lamar, whom a judge once described as too beautiful to be in a big city, started out seeking fame by traveling across the country with her second husband. She eventually left him to marry her third spouse, a dancer and check forger. Eventually, she made it to Hollywood and was noticed by Douglas Fairbanks. She subsequently said, became famous for her wild love life. She left her husband in 1921 and her dramatic liberated bon mots, which titillated the lost generation of flappers and philosophers. I take lovers like roses, by the dozen, she said. I cheat nature. I never sleep more than 2 hours per night. I have better things to do. One loves to live only because one lives to love. Number 4. Dennis Hopper. Not content to stir up controversy through his on-screen endeavors, his contributions to films like Easy Rider and Blue Velvet earned a fair few headlines on their own merits. Hopper's drug problems throughout the 70s made him a notoriously erratic character, prone to spirals of despair. As the man himself concisely put it, all alcohol and drugs got me was a lot of misery. The distinctly messy divorce proceedings in early 2010 which involved accusations of threatening behavior and drug use on the part of the fading star. In the final years of Dennis Hopper's life, the journalists and interviewers who wrote about him in his twilight years were keen to neatly round off the gnarly, volatile narrative of his life with a conversation approaching redemption. Hopper was arguably the most infamous wild man of his generation, which is saying something when you consider those he was keeping company with. According to popular legend, Warren Beatty was sex mad, Jack Nicholson fun mad, but Hopper was bad mad. Even in his 70s, he knew how to stage a scene. Sometime after he was diagnosed with aggressive prostate cancer, his fifth marriage of 14 years standing dramatically combusted. He had a restraining order issued against his much younger wife in court, despite being too ill and frail at the time to attend the hearing. His assistant accused her of trying to kill him, and Duffy retaliated by claiming he hadn't renounced those lifelong passions of his, guns and drugs. Ultimately, it's not surprising that in the end, he resisted following the script that others would lay out for him. That he reached his 70s surprised anybody who had read him talking about his addictions, let alone those who were close enough to witness it. I was doing half a gallon of rum with a fifth of rum on the side, 28 beers and 3 grams of coke a day. And that wasn't getting high. That was just to keep going, man, he said once. It's true that Hopper did mellow somewhat with age, but he remained, in some essential way, unreconstructed to the last. This was a man who didn't wrestle with his demons so much as dance with them. One glance at Hopper was enough to tell you he was trouble. The kinetic, destructive energy that propelled him in his youth through dissolution to psychosis was palpable in his coiled spring bearing and the granite gleam in his eyes. These were the qualities which were used to good effect by the movie-making machine, which in his later years put him to work playing a long list of deranged and sadistic psychopaths. Number 3. Tallulah Bankhead. Beautiful, rebellious, witty, and not afraid to occasionally alienate people by speaking her mind, Tallulah Bankhead was a one-of-a-kind sex symbol. Actor-writer Emlyn Williams described her voice as deep in sex as the human voice can go without drowning, and her appetites were legion. One of many memorable anecdotes, as recounted by The New Yorker, involved a second-rank actor named John Emery, whom Tallulah had picked up on the summer circuit and rather casually married. Emery was good-looking, capable, and amiable. Best of all, he bore a marked resemblance to John Barrymore, and not only in profile. Years earlier, when Barrymore revealed himself to her in his dressing room, Tallulah had sworn to herself and anyone within earshot never to sleep with any man who wasn't hung like Barrymore, and went on to claim that she had stuck to her word. Since she also claimed 500 or more conquests, perhaps she wasn't always so picky. One of Tallulah's party tricks was to escort guests to the master bedroom, fling back the covers from the bed in which Emery was sleeping, and crow, "Did you ever see a prick as big as that before?" Tallulah Brockman Bankhead, January 31st, 1902 to December 12th, 1968, was an American actress of the stage and screen. Bankhead was known for her husky voice, outrageous personality, and devastating wit. Originating some of the 20th century theater's preeminent roles in comedy and melodrama, she gained acclaim as an actress on both sides of the Atlantic. Bankhead became an icon of the tempestuous, flamboyant actress, and her unique voice and mannerisms are often subject to imitation and parody. In her personal life, Bankhead struggled with alcoholism and drug addiction, and was infamous for her uninhibited sex life, including numerous lesbian affairs. Bankhead was capable of great kindness and generosity to those in need, supporting disadvantaged foster children and helping several families escape the Spanish Civil War and World War II. Bankhead was inducted into the American Theater Hall of Fame in 1972 and the Alabama Women's Hall of Fame in 1981. Upon her death, Bankhead had amassed nearly 300 film, stage, television, and radio roles. Number 2. Klaus Kinski. A notoriously difficult customer on set, Kinski reserved his most difficult behavior for regular collaborator Werner Herzog. Famously, Kinski attempted to leave production on Aguirre, The Wrath of God, having grown exasperated with his director. Herzog only managed to force him to reconsider his actions by holding him at gunpoint. As you do. The same shoot saw Kinski unleash some firearm-based havoc of his own, firing a gun at a hut full of crew members and blowing off an extra's finger in the process. In 2013, the German actress Paula Kinski, daughter of one of the most infamous film stars who ever lived, published her autobiography. Entitled Kindermund, The Mouth of a Child, it explained in harrowing detail what it was like to be the firstborn child of Klaus Kinski. From the ages of 5 to 19, she was forced into an incestuous sexual relationship with her father, starting with open-mouthed kisses and culminating in many years of rape. These bombshell revelations are beyond myth and have totally reframed any possible perspectives of Kinski as a man and artist. It feels repugnant to even consider his fabled genius as a performer in this light. All the accumulated lore about his legendary, monstrous, egomaniacal, and disturbed behavior. Did he really shoot an extra's finger off during Aguirre, The Wrath of God in 1972? Is it true that multiple filmmakers quite seriously thought about having him killed? Can't be sifted through as entertaining scuttlebutt anymore. Legends can be toyed with, confirmed or debunked. Blunt facts, when they're this hideous, get the last word. Number 1. Joan Crawford. She was a Pepsi-loving, coat-hanger-hating, wide-shouldered Hollywood icon. Promiscuous and manipulative, she made shockwaves on the silver screen. But she would unwind after a long day by pummeling her children. Joan Crawford, born in 1904, is one of the most renowned actresses of the 20th century. Known for her powerful performances in movies such as Mildred Pierce and Humoresque, she carved out a unique place in Hollywood history. She continues to hold her popularity even after many decades of her death. Joan Crawford's love life was as dramatic as the roles she depicted on screen. She was married 4 times throughout her life. She first married Douglas Fairbanks Jr. in 1929, and after divorcing, she wed in 1935 the actor, producer, and director Franchot Tone. Her third husband was Philip Terry, who married in 1942. Each of these marriages lasted at most 4 years. Her last husband was Alfred Steele. They married in 1955, and he was famous for being the CEO of Pepsi Company. Their marriage did not end in divorce, but it was his death that tragically separated them in 1959, when Alfred sadly died of a heart attack. After his death, Joan became a director in the company. Despite having several relationships, her family life and how she managed it has attracted much attention. Joan Crawford was a woman known for many things: her ongoing feud with Bette Davis, her sexual prowess, and her ability to control a situation with her femininity, and her charitable missions, among which were 5 private adoptions over the course of her life. Her second child, a boy, was adopted and reclaimed within a year by his birth mother. But when her eldest adoptive daughter, Christina Crawford, released the tell-all memoir Mommy Dearest in 1978, within a year of Crawford's death, it painted a much darker picture of the actress, one of an alcoholic and abusive mother prone to fits of rage. The general public knew things between mother and daughter hadn't exactly been dandy. Their relationship was said to have started falling apart around 1968, when 29-year-old Christina took a medical leave of absence from her CBS soap The Secret Storm, and a 60-something Crawford replaced her. But this was a whole new level of shock. It's said that Crawford knew of the book's existence before her death in May 1977, but that she'd never discussed it with Christina. In her will, she made sure to omit both Christina and her brother Christopher for reasons they knew, leaving everything to her twin daughters Kathy and Cindy and to charity. The disowned children later contested and won. Thanks for joining us on this wild Hollywood ride. If you enjoyed this video, give it a thumbs up, share it with your movie-loving friends, and comment down below with your thoughts. Don't forget to subscribe for more juicy Hollywood secrets. Well, until next time, stay tuned.